Okay, we'll call Weedman.
Yes.
She said she was coming. She said she was coming.
Good afternoon, sir. I swore in everybody at once, but because we are bringing in people one at a time, I'd just like to confirm for the record, you were sworn in as part of that group, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You may grab a seat.
I think he's in Sorry.
You may proceed.
Sir, please state your name for the record.
My name is Richard Weedman.
And, Mr. Weedman, how are you employed?
I'm employed by the Office of the Medical Investigator. I'm a senior deputy medical investigator.
Senior Deputy Medical Investigator, how long have you been working with
A little over 20 years.
And what are your duties or what is your role with the hospital?
To respond to and investigate unexpected deaths.
When do you get notified that your assistance is needed?
Either notified by the hospital or law enforcement.
And then from there you go where they are to...
Proceed to where the death occurred.
Right. I'm going to take you back to January 27th of 2023. Were you working with the Office of Medical Investigator at that time?
Yes.
And did you get summons to the Artesia General Hospital?
Right. I was notified by Artesia Police Dispatch and notified of the death at the hospital.
So Artesia Police Dispatch notified you and you went to the hospital?
Correct.
And what did you observe, or what observations did you make when you arrived at the Artesia General Hospital?
Initially met with law enforcement, Detective Barnabas Gonzalez with Artesia Police Department. He gave me a brief report, went into the trauma room, I believe it was trauma room 2, and observed the decedent.
And what observations did you make about the decedent initially?
Was on the exam table on an absorbent pad. Umbilical cord had been severed. The examined did not see any obvious signs of trauma. Also, there was my brief examination, the skin appeared somewhat mottled on the chest with purple mottling on it, and there was no rigor mortis present. The muscles weren't rigid, and seemed to be a fully formed, full-term, my opinion, excuse me, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a physician, but appeared to be a full-term pregnancy.
So you said there was purple mottling. Can you tell us a little bit of what that means?
Just there were blotches on the skin.
And there was no rigor, so also the baby were not rigid.
Correct.
What do these things, or do these two things, these observations tell you anything about death or anything like that?
For the rigor mortis gives an indication a little bit as to how long an individual had been dead. It's not like CSI where you can tell down to the minute or anything. Basically, someone is recently dead, someone's been dead a long time, someone's been dead a very long time. And I'm sorry if you need more details as far as what those times are. I mean,
No,
okay.
That helps answer the question. So did you have an opinion about what you observed, if it was recently?
It, to me, appeared to be a recent death.
So how do you begin your investigation? I mean, obviously you're erratic, but what are your next steps?
As I talked with law enforcement, got their report, talked with hospital staff, got their information and for their report, and then made observations, took photos of the decedent.
Observations, photos of the decedent, and what's your next step once you take those photos of the decedent?
When I was completely, well, also observed the material that was surrounding the decedent. It was material that reportedly had been found in a plastic bag with the decedent, and the trash can that with the separate bag that reportedly were what I was told where the decedent came from. I said by my arrival, the decedent was on the exam table, so.
All right. I'm going to show you, Mr. Weedman, what's been entered as State's Exhibits 5 through 18.
You may.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recognize these photographs?
I believe these are from law enforcement. I don't think these were my photos because I did not go to these. I recognize the scene though. From
You
what?
can accurately depict what you saw.
Yes.
The baby, whether it's with the baby.
Yes, ma'am.
The last few pictures in that stack are of orange tags.
Right.
Do you recognize those?
Yes. The one is an armband that I placed around the decedent's wrist.
What is that?
15.
So 15 is an armband placed around
Right.
his wrist.
That has, at the time we did not have a name, so it's John Doe, or Baby Doe with John in parentheses. The Eddy County, my initial last name, my deputy number 8.36, and the date, birth date and death date, the same. And the other orange tag is a seal provided, the armband also provided by medical investigator's office. The seal, it's like a zip tie in a way. It's once you pull it through, you can't undo it. So it has the flat part that basically an evidence seal. And so once it's closed, the zipper pulls on the body bag have two rounded openings on each one. They slide together, leaving a hole. It goes through the four pieces there, and then loops back around and seals through the tag. So once it's pulled tight, it can't be undone. They have a unique number on the tags, in this case 49905. When I call in my report, as every case that field deputy investigator investigates has to be called into Albuquerque, I report that number for the seal. That number is told to the transporter, and the transporter, somebody from the funeral home, in this case Turpinning and Son in Artesia, picks up the body in the sealed body bag. The transporter, when they come down, know what the seal number is. If it doesn't match, they're not going to pick it up. When it gets to Albuquerque, it's checked to make sure it's matched and to make sure the seal hasn't been tampered with, to make sure that any evidence inside has not been tampered with.
And did you follow this process with Baby John Doe, the seal of the body bag?
Yes, ma'am. It's my handwriting. last name on the tag Doe, and then baby with John in parentheses, and then the date it was sealed, which happened to be the date of death also. But for legal reasons, it's the date the bag is sealed. And then on the back, more information, my deputy number, name, and the Eddy County date of birth, which would go on any of the seals.
Mr. Weedman, what goes into the body bag? So in this instance, there are a number of things surrounding baby John Doe. Did all of the contents of that gurney on top of the gurney go into the bag with him?
Yes, the bag with the paper towels, other things that were in it. The umbilical cord, of course, still was attached. The severed umbilical cord went into the bag. And the bag was an adult-sized bag. They don't issue the infant sizes anymore. So had to fold it in half and tape it so it would secure the remains.
Collect, seal, and get everything ready for transport. What do you do next in the process?
Call the funeral home to arrange for transport. We don't have morgues in Eddy County. Not Albuquerque, Las Cruces, cities like that do. We do not. So the funeral homes are morgues. Called Turpinning and Son. They arrived, they picked up the sealed body bag to hold in refrigeration until the transporter from Roswell would come down to take the decedent to Albuquerque for an autopsy.
Do you have, once that transfer is done to the funeral home, do you have any further contact with the deceased or the bag?
No. At that point, then I've phoned me in my report to Albuquerque, and then they put that into a system. And then once I got home, we don't have offices. We just work out of our homes. I did the report online and submitted that.
And do you, Mr. Weedman, do you make any findings, cause of death, manner of death, anything like that?
I do not. The pathologist in Albuquerque does that.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you. Just a couple of questions about your report and some of the things that you put in your report. This report is given to the doctors at the Office of the Medical Investigator in Albuquerque. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And one of the things I'm concerned here or asking you about is this. She stated she needed to use the bathroom and took a tampon in with her. Where did you get that information?
From the officers.
From the
From
police officer?
Detective Gonzalez and or from the hospital staff.
Okay. And you, in your report, indicate that you did not know what happened with the placenta. Is that correct?
At the time, part of why she was transported to Roswell was that they did not find the placenta, so it appeared she had not delivered.
And then you make this statement: hospital staff reported that decedent, meaning the baby, had been cleaned up prior to being found. There were bloody paper towels in the trash bag with the decedent. That was your impression as well, is that correct? That the baby had been...
The baby was not bloody as a normal would happen after a birth.
Is there somebody at tried to clean the baby.
Right.
And you knew it wasn't the nursing staff or anybody else at the hospital.
All I was going by was what I was told, sir.
You got it. All right. Thank you. I have nothing further, Your Honor. Pass the witness.
May this witness be released from subpoena?
Yes, sir.
He may.
Sir, you've been released from subpoena. What that basically means is you are not going to be called back as a witness in this matter. You are free to return home or go about your day.
Thank you very
sir.
much.
Statement
Your
caller
Honor, do you
next.
think we might be able to have a 10-minute recess?
Yes, that'll be fine. No problem with a 10-minute recess. It's currently 5:27. Let's go ahead and take it. Let's make it 13. Just make it an easy,
Yeah, 'cause-
easy opportunity. So it's 5:27 now. We'll reconvene at 5:40.
Thank you, Judge.
You in, but I'm asking every witness before we proceed. Do you recall being sworn in?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And Ms. Gonzalez, as we had the issue with the last witness, you're welcome to come up to the bench to conduct this examination.
And if my understanding is correct, I'm going to stipulate that Dr. Schultz can testify and render an opinion as an expert in pathology.
That's correct.
Okay. The court will find that Dr. Shinost is an expert in pathology and can render opinion based on her expert qualifications. You may.
Ma'am, if you'll please state your name for the record.
My name is Dr. Harley Shinist.
Shinist. I'm sorry about the mispronunciation.
Oh, that's okay.
What do you do for a living?
I am a forensic pathology fellow.
And where are you currently employed?
The University of New Mexico and the Office of Medical Investigator in Albuquerque.
And what is your job title?
So I'm a forensic pathology fellow.
Dr. Shinist, I'm going to draw your attention to an autopsy that you performed, and it will be on case number 2023-00669. Are you familiar with the case to which I'm referring?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And did you perform an autopsy on Big John Doe?
Yes, I did.
And what date did you perform that autopsy?
Is it okay if I refer to my report for that?
Would that refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Your Honor, if she may refer to her report.
Any objection?
I have no objection. In fact, I think that's wise. I have no objection.
You may do so, ma'am.
Okay. The autopsy was that I performed was on January 28th, 2023.
No, Dr. Shinist, when you receive a decedent for autopsy, how do you begin your process?
So the first thing that I do is I receive information about the scene investigation from our scene investigators, and so I get kind of the preliminary story of how things are currently known, of what happens, and from there we triage whether we're going to do a full autopsy, which in this case we did, or another type of examination. A CT scan, a computed tomography scan, is performed on most of our decedents in our office, and we also look at that CT as we're hearing information from the investigators to determine what type of examination we're going to perform.
Okay. And so, did you receive all that information that you needed for this autopsy?
I did receive information for this autopsy.
Okay. And so, once you've gotten that, you've reviewed it, what's your next step in your process?
So then we go on to actually perform the examination, and so we start with an external examination, which looks at the outside of the body. We detail, if there's any medical intervention, which in this case there was not. We look at if there's any external injuries or any findings, as well as just standard things that we look at externally, like hair and eye color, etc.
Okay. So you said you determined if there was medical interventions, and in this case, there were none that you could determine? or so?
That's correct.
Okay. You then do an external examination for injuries. Did you find any type of injuries to baby John Doe?
No, I did not find any injuries.
Okay. So once that is completed, then how do you proceed?
Then we perform the internal examination. We open the body and we take our ancillary tests. So we might take cultures, which we did in this case. We might take blood or tissue for toxicology, which we also did in this case. Bile for a metabolic study. We collect all of our additional ancillary materials, and then we examine the organs. We remove them from the body and we examine them both as they connect to other organs, and then we disconnect them and examine each organ individually as well.
All right. So, Doctor, I want to talk with you about the specific portions of that which you just described. In your report, or before we go that far, once you've completed your examination and made your findings, do you complete a report?
Yes. Once we receive all of our ancillary testing back, we do complete a final autopsy report.
Okay. And I'm going to put up what I'm marking on State's Exhibit 19 for purposes of identification. If I may.
You may.
Dr. Shilos, please tell me if you can.
I'm not seeing anything.
Sorry, give me 1 second. I looked the wrong. Oh. Can you see what I've just put up on the screen?
Yes.
Do you recognize State's Exhibit 19?
Yes.
What is it?
This is our autopsy report for this case.
Okay. And does this report have your signature fixed?
It does.
And I'm going to kind of scroll through in the pages, 7 pages. Does this look to be the report that you drafted for this case?
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, I'd like to move States 19 into evidence.
Any objection?
I'm sorry, say it again.
States 19 into evidence.
Is 19 your report? Request the primary reading of that objection.
State's Exhibit 19 will be admitted into evidence.
Please.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Sterner, so I'm going to talk with you about some specific areas of the report that you drafted in this report. You already stated that there were no external injuries that you were able to see. Internally, were there any injuries that you found or any defects that you found in baby John Doe?
There were no injuries.
You make a couple of findings in your report. One, the first of which is that the lungs in baby John Doe were aerated. Can you explain that for the court, please?
Sure. So this is something that we initially saw on our CT scan that we perform and looked at in the morning. We were able to see air within the lung fields on the CT. And then when we performed our autopsy, they also appeared aerated at that point. However, the CT findings are more specific for that air.
Okay. So what does that finding mean? You said it and I missed it.
So that finding, in the absence of decomposition and resuscitative efforts, that finding indicates that breaths were taken.
Okay. And you already said that there were no, or to your knowledge, there were no resuscitation efforts. And you said absent from decomposition. Did you find any decomposition in baby John Doe when you received him?
He had no changes of decomposition.
So you said based on that, it's evidence that he took a breath or breathed after he was born.
That's correct.
There you also note that there was air in the stomach of baby John Doe. Can you expound on that first, please?
Yeah, so the air in the stomach, again, was something that we noted on our CT scan, and again indicates that he was alive at the time of birth and was breathing, and essentially the air gets into the stomach by gulping the air.
All right. You further found that the adrenal glands had some findings. Can you explain that first, please?
Sure. We found adrenal hemorrhage on our microscopy slide, so under the microscope. It was not evident grossly or at the time of autopsy, but we take sections to look at under the microscope as well. And under the microscope, there was some adrenal hemorrhage, which is a really non-specific finding, but can be seen in cases of hypoxia.
Okay. So you said it's a non-specific finding. What does that mean?
So non-specific just means it can be seen in other things as well. So you could see adrenal hemorrhage in a variety of different things, including injuries, which he did not have. It can kind of be seen as just a stress response in some neonates. And so it doesn't necessarily indicate specifically hypoxia, but with the other findings in this case, it's supportive of hypoxia.
Okay, so with the air in the lungs, the air in the stomach, or the lungs aerated and the air in the stomach, this finding in the adrenal glands supports the hypoxia in baby John Doe.
As well as, the circumstances in which he was found, it supports the hypoxia.
Okay, so the being in a bag and all that information that you gained from the investigation.
Correct.
Okay. And can you tell us what hypoxia means?
So hypoxia is a lack of air.
There was also a finding or a note that there was non-specific vascular congestion. Can you explain that first, please?
Sure. So this was on our neuropathology examination, which I personally reviewed and was also reviewed by one of our neuropathologists. And it's another one of those non-specific findings, so it can be seen in many things. But in this case, the vascular congestion is consistent with hypoxia.
So with everything, the totality of the circumstances, it also supports the hypoxia.
That's correct.
Dr. Shernos, were you able to determine a cause and manner of death of baby John Doe?
Yes, we were.
Okay. And what was the cause of death for baby John Doe?
So the cause of death was entrapment.
What is entrapment?
So entrapment is when a person is in an airtight or relatively airtight container, in this case the plastic bag, and they consume all of the available oxygen within that container, and then there's no longer enough oxygen to support life.
So entrapment, and how about the manner of death?
The manner of death was homicide.
So with everything that you performed, all of the examinations and studies of baby John Doe, was there any other injuries or defects that you determined could have or did cause this entrapment?
He had no other injuries or defects.
Thank you, Dr. Shernos. I don't have any further questions.
Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you. Doctor, did you review the lab reports from NMS
Yes, I did.
And you noted in the heart blood morphine of 19, what is that, nanograms per milliliter?
Yes.
And is that phenethylamine, 420 nanograms per milliliter?
The phentermine, yes.
Phentermine, thank you. And phentermine is something that we see people take for weight loss or to slow, or not weight loss, but suppression of appetite.
That's what it's commonly used for, correct?
Okay, and the morphine, did you review the medical records in this case?
I did not have access to the mother's medical records in this case, and the decedent did not have any medical records that we were provided with.
Would you be surprised to find that she was given morphine at the hospital?
No.
Okay. Now, did you take a look at SLD's report?
For the cultures?
Yes.
Yes.
Is it correct that they found E. coli?
I would have
Hold up,
to
we've got an
refer to the
objection.
report.
We'll have an objection. Go ahead, ma'am.
Your Honor, there's been no information that this is drafted by Dr. Shinos, or that she has knowledge of the examinations or testing for the virus.
Mr. Mitchell, your response?
I'll ask her. Let me ask her that question.
All right. All right.
Doctor, are you familiar with that report?
Yes.
And I assume you know how to read it.
Yes.
And I assume you know what they're talking about when they're speaking of E. coli and Linococcus species, etc. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, I do.
All right. And I wanted to go through that with you because it relates to,
Sorry.
Yes.
I'm going to bring you my objection. The knowledge and the ability to read someone else's findings or report is non-admissible. It's a form of hearsay. Basically, he's trying to get in a report without the author, without knowing what tests were performed, how they were performed, etc., when they were performed.
What's your response, Mr. Mitchell?
my response is this is done in the ordinary course of business by a forensic pathologist as part of their studies, as part of the information they have to make determinations. It's no different than what the state just did when she talked about having a neuro, and I don't know if it was a neurologist or whoever they had at OMI look at it as well, and look at the same charts and confer with them. It's no different. This is all part of forensic pathology. You have to know what the toxicology reports come back and in order to reach certain conclusions.
And Ms. Gonzalez?
And she has, and just to conclude that argument, Your Honor, the doctor indicates she knows how to read it, she knows what they're talking about. It's part of her work.
Your Honor, my objection is just that we're trying to get someone else's work in through someone who didn't do that. I didn't admit anything from a neuropathologist. There is evidence of that, but I didn't seek to admit it because the neuropathologist isn't here. So I would say there's no foundation, there's no authentication, and it's not the person who did the testing.
regards to this objection to hearsay, Mr. Mitchell's, correct me if I'm wrong, you're citing that this is an exception to hearsay under 11802, record of regularly conducted activity. I don't believe it's been established that this is in fact a record of regularly conducted activity, and the objection will be sustained.
And Your Honor, I would just bring up that there's no custodian who's present of that record. The author is not here. The SOB lab maintains that record. So.
Well, the objection is sustained. Mr. Mitchell, you may
Thank you,
proceed.
Your Honor. Doctor, do you regularly get, just out of curiosity, do you regularly send off information to laboratories, whether it's heart blood or whether or not it's other specimens, to two different laboratories for reports, SLD and NMS?
Yes, we do.
All right. And just out of curiosity, did you get a request for additional specimens from them?
They did not request any specimens from us.
No, that's not what I meant. Did they advise you that you should consider collecting a new specimen?
No, they did not.
Okay. Now let's talk about the mechanism of injury. And I notice you referred to a plastic bag or container. That's because that's the information you received to determine the mechanism of injury?
So I did receive that information, but we also received the plastic bag with the decedent.
Right. And the plastic bag was open at the time you received it, is that correct?
It had been opened at the time we received it, yes.
All right. So you don't know yourself what the condition of the plastic bag was earlier, do you?
No, I was relying on reports from our investigator and the law enforcement report for that.
Exactly. Now, when we talk about entrapment, we can talk about there being other non-homicidal type entrapments. Is that fair?
Yes.
In other words, other mechanisms that may cut off breathing.
Yes.
Now, in this case, I know you looked at the umbilical cord, but did you make note that the umbilicus in this case was very long?
I would have to refer to my report to refresh myself on that.
Please do.
We measured the attached umbilical cord at 63 centimeters in length.
All right. Well, I appreciate that, but that doesn't help us lay people. Does that mean it's that normally long, short? What does it mean for a baby of 18 inches and 5 pounds?
So the length of an umbilical cord can vary. I would say this is probably a little on the long side, but I wouldn't say it's excessively long.
And entrapment can occur because of issues with the umbilical cord. Is that correct?
Asphyxia can occur because of issues with the umbilical cord, but not entrapment.
All right. Do you have any information other than the patient was in the bathroom when she had the baby? Do you have any other information as to how or where she was present or how the baby was delivered?
I do not.
Or if the baby fell somewhere? Do you have any of that information?
No.
All right. Thank you. I have nothing further at this time.
May this witness be released from subpoena?
She may.
Just, I have something additional.
She says she had additional questions.
Dr. Sharist, I just have a brief follow-up. Mr. Mitchell asked if the baby had fallen, but you previously testified there were no injuries or were there any injuries that would lead you to think that this baby had fallen or was dropped or anything of that nature?
No, there were no injuries to indicate that.
And one last question. Were you able to tell the age of baby John Doe?
So we did approximate his age around 38 weeks gestation, but that could be plus or minus a week or two.
Okay, plus or minus a week. Thank you. I don't have anything further.
Anything further, Mr. Mitchell?
I have nothing further. Thank you.
This witness be released from subpoena, ma'am?
Yes.
Doctor, you've been released from subpoena. You are no longer required to testify in this case, so you will not be called back as a witness. You may go about your day. Thank you for your testimony today.